Hey there, everybody. I, like many of you, have been tinkering with the artificial intelligence and trying to find ways to leverage the technology to make our teaching a little bit more efficient and a little bit less time consuming. And I think I've discovered sort of a tech stack that might be easily to replicate and something that you might find to be useful. And I'm coming to you from the context of the courses that I teach at Southern New Hampshire University. So in that context, I teach math courses, and we leverage a tool called Mobius. And there's a lot of questions that are automatically graded, but every week we have a handful of manually graded questions where students are asked to submit an open response to a specific question explaining what they do, or how they came to their end result in their given problem. And one of our jobs as instructors is to write individualized, meaningful feedback that's actionable, that will help the student evolve as writers. So prior to artificial intelligence, I would take these notes. I'd go through and I'd manually grade the questions in Mobius. I would put my feedback in an Apple Note or whatever, but I started leveraging the Apple version of Excel because I find that a lot of my comments are similar. So within Excel, as I'm typing, if somebody did really well and had a very robust explanation, I can have that text already pre-populated, and then I can modify it to meet the needs of the students. So say for this particular assignment, I have 3 questions that were manually graded, and I went through my list and I graded every single student's 3 questions. Historically, I would then compile that into a singular written response that I would submit with the grading feedback on the D2L platform. One thing that I have been experimenting with is using artificial intelligence to synthesize my notes and to write something that is a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit easier to read, because I find that my brain gets a little bit mush at the end of doing all of these written assessments. So I want to sound, it's interesting as I say this out loud, I want to use artificial intelligence to sound less robotic and more like myself. So there's a couple of integrations that I think you might find to be useful. So this is written in the Apple version of Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of these columns right here, and then I'm going to bring it over to a Google Sheet, because there's a cool little plugin or extension within Google Sheets that will allow me to essentially summarize my information. So as you can see, it's not too pretty when it comes in. So I'm going to wrap these cells real quick so you can basically get a cleaner version of what we got going on. So I've obviously hidden the names for student privacy issue, at least first and last name. You'll see some first names coming through here if you look quickly enough, but we're going to move pretty fast, so that won't be an issue. So the thing that I want to draw your attention to first is under the extensions button. So I'm going to click here, and the tool that I use is GPT for Sheets and Docs. So what I'll do is I'll launch and enable functions, and then it's going to be pretty fun. There are going to be a list of formulas that pop up here. I'm going to use the summarize function. So what I'll do is I'll click here and type equal GPT underscore summarize, and then that's going to start my formula. I'm going to take A5, and then I'm going to go through C5, and that's going to give me all of that information. So the stuff that populates here is fairly robotic, so I have another way of going about doing this, where I take this information and I have a prompt that makes things a little bit more, I don't know, sounds a little bit more like myself, and then I can direct the feedback directly to the student. Now go ahead and wrap the cells here, and then you'll find that if there's some empty cells here, it's going to put a weird sort of, it's going to fill it in with some weird text. But what I'll do is click that little box on the lower right hand side of the cell, and then hopefully it should start pre-populating for me. So this right here, the article discusses the importance. That's the stuff that doesn't really make sense, and that's because there's nothing in those cells. So it does populate some information that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm just going to clean this out a little bit Just like with any data analyst, you have to clean your data a little bit to make sure you have all of the information that you want and none of the extra stuff. So I'm going to clean that out. All right, all that stuff's junk. Now, I have a prompt here that I'm going to steal, and I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to put it right here because what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to highlight all this stuff, and I'm going to copy it as plain text. And then I think that's all I want, so I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to do the special paste, just because I want to make sure that I'm not getting the formulas, I'm getting the values only. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this information, and since I put the prompt at the top of it, in theory, I'm hoping that it will do everything that I need to do here. Alright, so it's got everything here. Just going to make sure I get all of my information. It's not as clean as what I would like, but it's going to do the trick, hopefully. So I'm going to go to a new chat. I'm going to copy and paste everything that I have there, and we'll see. So you'll notice that it'll take all of my information that I synthesized there, and it's going to put it into customized feedback of 2 to 3 sentences. This is not what I will submit to my students, however. What I'll do is I'll go through and make sure to contextualize each of these summations to ensure that it is in line with what I want my students to hear. But even if it's 80% correct, it does save me a boatload of time. Now, if it ever pauses midstream, I can just type continue and I will be good to go. But that was a pretty clean situation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks like it's missing some, so that's part of the deal where I may need to go back and relook at how this data populates. But again, in a matter of seconds, it took all of my written explanation, summarized it, and now I have some content that I can go and post in the feedback forum when I submit my grades for this week. Hopefully this was helpful. If you use a tech stack similar to this, let me know. If you have any questions, let's process through it together. Like I said, I'm a newbie. I'm experimenting myself and definitely would love to dig into this stuff with you.